This is Spirit Over Mind,
your newest voyage into meditation and spirituality.
Hey everyone, welcome to Spirit Over Mind. As you can see, if you're joining us on YouTube right now, this is our podcast setup starting from this point on. If you aren't listening on YouTube, that's totally okay. Whatever podcast platform you're on, totally fine. Any pictures or additional footage that I show on the YouTube, I'll try to post that in stories on our Instagram. So if you are watching on, let's say, Spotify, Apple Music, whatever, feel free to look at our Instagram story and I'll try to upload things that I put on the YouTube on there as well. But if you have the option and you're not driving or something, I highly recommend checking out the YouTube. I'm really going to try to push the YouTube right now just because I want to feature as much information as possible along with the guided meditations every couple months. So anyway, guys, I'm Vincent. There's nobody sitting in this chair next to me right now. Moving forward, I might invite guests onto the podcast, people that I think could add some additional information or experience or just insight into whatever topic we are talking about. And yeah, that's what this is going to be. So whenever I post a deep dive like this on the YouTube or on the other podcast platforms, expect us to just talk for maybe 20, 30 minutes about a topic that interests all of us. If you have any recommendations or ideas for future podcast episodes, feel free to leave a comment below. Let us know. And if you're, of course, listening on another podcast platform, shoot us a DM and we'll try to include that in a future episode. Today's episode is going to be all about my pain journey, my medical experience, all of my health problems that I've experienced the last decade of my life, hence the title, A Decade of Pain. I'm not going to be super specific with things. I'll try to keep things as vague as possible and just try to give you the good chunks of experience or information that I think you guys could benefit from knowing. But yeah, this first deep dive is just going to be all about what I've experienced, just to give you a little bit more context as to why I'm doing this podcast at all. And ultimately, you're going to discover it's just because I want to give back and share all the things that I learned along my tough road. And I'm still young, so I've got hopefully still a lot of life left ahead of me. But yeah, so that's what this podcast is all about, is just sharing what I've learned and experienced with others in hopes that it can inspire you guys and help you along your healing journey as well. All right, so going back to the very beginning, how it all started. My health problems began when I was about 14 years old, so I was in 8th grade at the time, and they were nothing more than just headaches. That's really all it was at the beginning. Was for the first time ever, I started experiencing headaches coming back from school and during class. And it wasn't something too concerning, but for someone who never had a headache before, it was just kind of like, oh, this is weird. Then, further down the line, those headaches turned into migraines every now and then. Every couple weeks I'd get a migraine. So I started taking Advil with me to school just in case that ever happened. But yeah, the headaches increased in duration, frequency, and intensity to the point where in college I had a constant 24/7 headache that was there from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to bed, if I even went to bed, because some nights I couldn't sleep through it. So that's really kind of the gist of where it all started. From there, I did break my nose in 8th grade as well. I believe I was 15 at the time. And then again, when I was in high school, so that was 12th grade. So I was probably like 17 when I broke my nose a second time. It was I was a pole vaulter in high school. I did varsity track and field, and yeah, it was just a fluke accident, and I completely broke my nose. And I did get a nose surgery to repair the break. Things got a little bit better, but then once I entered college, I started getting lots of other health problems, stomach problems. My headaches got insanely worse. I had a migraine nearly every couple days. That headache that was constantly there was still there. And on top of that, I was juggling a part-time job working at In-N-Out and another part-time job working our wood shop at Cal State Long Beach. I was an industrial design major, and so a lot of our curriculum and projects revolved around us working with our hands. So I worked in the wood shop. I then began starting to get a lot of stomach problems, and my diet just started getting all out of whack. I would wake up with no energy and just like such fatigue throughout the day. Again, my migraines would then become a daily thing that I dealt with every single day. So then I started working with neurologists at USC, and actually not just USC. I worked with neurologists at Cedars-Sinai, UCLA, UCI, all over the place. We worked with teams of doctors just to figure out how to treat these migraines and headaches that I was getting. But years went by, and no matter what we did, nothing seemed to really help. No matter what migraine medications or infusions, injections, Botox, occupational therapy type things, physical therapy, nothing seemed to improve my daily pain. And then on top of that, I started experiencing severe neck and spine problems that I still deal with to this day. Granted, they're a lot better where I'm sitting now, but back in college, juggling just the workload of college and then the workload of the part-time jobs and then the medical problems, it started to become a real big issue for me. So that's when I decided to move back home. I left my apartment in Long Beach. I lived there for about 2 years, and then I lived the remaining 3 years of college back at home with my parents and my sister. My program in college was a 5-year program, so it took me 5 years to graduate, and I thankfully graduated. I almost didn't. My health problems got almost so bad that I contemplated whether or not I needed to take a semester or even a year off of school. Thankfully, I was able to apply for disability accommodations. I was really open and communicative with my professors, and they all knew my situation. My classmates and peers knew my situation. So I had a lot of support and help getting me through the finish line. And thankfully, I got my degree in the 5 years. But it was a struggle, to say the least. So from there, I want to give a shout out to my mom. She truly was a savior, a guardian angel in my life, not just because she brought me into this world and gave me life, but throughout all of my pain and suffering and medical problems, she was there sort of managing my case for me and essentially being a diagnostic doctor for me, which she went above and beyond. And she ultimately did enough research to discover that neck and spine problems could be caused by spinal fluid leaks. And all of my symptoms lined up with what we saw online. So we decided to talk to my neurologist at USC about it. She referred me to the top neurosurgeon that specialized in spinal fluid leaks specifically at Cedars-Sinai. And I got it looked at, and lo and behold, yeah, I did have a pretty huge spinal fluid leak in my lower back. And we have no idea how long it was there. We don't know what caused it. As of right now, it's being diagnosed as a spontaneous CSF leak, which essentially means like there was no obvious cause to the leak. Normally, people will get leaks if they're in an injury or a car accident, or even mothers who are in labor, if they get punctured in their spine, for like an epidural. Those types of things can cause a leak afterward, but I didn't have any of that happen to me. So it was sort of a fluke, a spontaneous spinal fluid leak. And that over time could have caused severe problems to my body and just my quality of life, because our spinal fluid is there to sort of not just lubricate all of the vertebrae in our spine, but also suspend them and allow them to float a bit. And when that fluid is low, your vertebrae, your bones sit on top of each other, which could compress nerves and just cause serious pain and damage over time. Something I forgot to mention when I was recording was the actual sensation and feeling that having a spinal fluid leak actually feels like. So basically, the way I describe it is it felt as if I was carrying an unbearable amount of weight on my head every day, all day. I used to tell people it felt like I was carrying a baby grand piano on my head, or like a bowling ball, because it literally, without our spinal fluid, your vertebrae and your bones just sit right on top of each other, and they compress nerves, and they're just basically grinding on top of each other the whole time. In addition to that, it also made my head feel constantly unstable, almost as if instead of my head, there was a bowling ball on top of my neck, and my neck muscles were like thin rubber bands. So that was what having a leak actually felt like. And I felt it in my neck mostly, but then also in my upper back, mid back, and lower back, and even in my legs. I'm now having a lot of nerve issues in my legs the last couple years. So yeah, that's what I experienced for years with the spinal fluid leak. And if you're looking on YouTube, here's something that I did constantly to help relieve my pain, was simply just hang upside down or use one of those inversion tables all the time. I was always trying to hang my neck over something because the weight was unbearable. So yeah, that's pretty much how I managed the pain, was just I'd constantly have to get up and get upside down. I mean, I try to lay flat as well, but going upside down gave me way more relief. And if you're not looking on YouTube, I'll try to post some videos on the Instagram story. And not to mention, our brain is floating in spinal fluid. So having a low amount of it could have affected my brain and could have been causing headaches and migraines. So that was a huge find. And so, like I said, thank you to my mom for discovering that essentially. And we went down the rabbit hole of treating that. And that took about a year. I had the spinal surgery to seal the leak in, I believe it was April of 2020 or 2021. Man, these years really just sort of blend together. But if I figured it out, I'll pop it up on the YouTube to confirm. But yeah, it was about a year of recovering at home. I honestly, this is where my problems really started to not improve actually, but get really, really, really dark. Because I was recovering from home, I isolated like crazy. And that's not to say I didn't do that in high school and college, but I did it especially during this time because I was recovering. I was very limited to what I could do. Any amount of work or really anything that I did throughout the day caused a lot of discomfort and severe pain. And so, yeah, I started to isolate. I started to shut people out and keep to myself. And when I was around people, especially in high school or college, I would mask around them and sort of try to hide how much pain I was truly in. And that ultimately did a lot to me and my mental health. Guys, I also forgot to mention that during this time, I lost an insane amount of weight. I was weighing about 119, 120, which is less than I did my freshman year of high school. And I was in college, almost graduated at this point. I was roughly, 23, 24 years old, but I was weighing 120 pounds. And I remember even some of the nurses would come in and tell me, wow, you are incredibly malnourished. You need to eat. And they would force me. I had to get on a dietary plan while I was staying in the hospitals, and they would force me to eat food just because I had lost so much weight in such a short amount of time. So that is something I wanted to mention, and I totally forgot when I recorded this. This began the darkest point of my life. And about a year, after the surgery, I would begin going to the ER on and off. Whenever the pain got so severe that I could not take it anymore, my family rushed me to the ER. I would be at home with ice on my head every day, ice on my neck, taking, any types of pain meds that I could just to get by. But I never wanted to endanger myself by taking like strong, severe pain meds. So I stuck to the basics, like your Advils, Tylenols, whatever. But they did nothing. They never could take any amount of the pain away. So my family would take me to the ER on and off. And I started to just want to give up. In the ER, it was the most dark and depressing times just because I didn't know how long I was going to be there. And whenever I left there thinking, all right, I'm better than I was coming in, it was never a guarantee that I was not going to come back. And so it began this cycle of just huge waves of depression and sadness and loneliness and fear. Constantly, my body was in fight or flight mode for years, just waiting for the pain to send me back to the ER. And honestly, I had a near-death experience when I was in the ER. One of the last times, I would say it was about now a year and a half ago. December of 2021. And there was a point where I was laying in the hospital bed, just shaking. My body was uncontrollably shaking, and it felt like I was on fire. My whole body was just sending pain throughout the entire body. And I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I was just like screaming and crying and just hoping that somebody would take me out of this misery. And I got to a point where I honestly started to see the light, and I was just like, wow, this is it. Like, my whole life is just ending here. Thankfully, I had some amazing, incredible nurses that, helped me come back, and my family were all there to help me come back and hold my hand through it all. And I came back. I also want to take a moment to emphasize how grateful I am to have had Elizabeth in my life during this time, because whenever I went to the ER, we were there for at least a week and sometimes almost 2 weeks. And Elizabeth each time stayed by my side, never leaving my side, and fought to be there to hold my hand through it all. And this was during COVID, and they were really strict about having guests in the room. But Elizabeth would constantly push to be there for me, and they allowed her to stay overnight the whole time I was there. We both essentially lived in hospitals for weeks at a time during these couple years. Whenever I was admitted to the emergency room, she would stay with me, and she just kept me company. We would play card games or watch The Office on our phones. We would read together. We would listen to music. She would walk me around the hallways, and we'd look at all the art. She was just incredible, and I could never thank her enough. And yeah, she was just the most amazing partner, just loving me and caring for me during this dark, dark time. So this is all to say I'm incredibly lucky and blessed to have had people like Elizabeth and my family and my friends in my life to support me through all of this. And if you don't have that kind of support in your life, I highly recommend reaching out to people and trying to find hope and inspiration and support wherever you can. Don't isolate. I know it can be overwhelming sometimes to put yourself out there when you're at such a loss, but isolating will just make the problem worse. You need to connect to people, reach out to people for help. That is how you will get out of it. I, from that point, decided if I'm going to exist, which I think from that point I chose that I wanted to stay here. I wanted to exist, because there were times when I was at home where I truly was like, I do I want to be here anymore? Do I really want to suffer like this every single day for years? But ultimately, because of how many people I had in my life that loved me and supported me and cared for me, I couldn't say bye to all that. And so, yeah, from that point, I decided to dedicate everything I had to healing and change my mindset about it, and not think that my body was a prison anymore and that this life was what I deserved, which were all thoughts that, revolved around my head constantly. So I began seeing a spiritual healer, a Reiki healer, and she started to allow me to see things a different way. And she empowered me to sort of begin the process of healing myself, not looking towards, Western medicine or even Eastern medicine as a cure, but seeing the cure within me. And I think that's what this podcast is all about. Spirit over mind comes from this idea that we are not our bodies. So that thing that we are outside of our body should have the ability to control what our physical existence is. Our spirit, if it can control our mind, our brain, and our brain can control our material self, our body, then we can do anything. We can heal any wounds. We can mend any pain or heartbreak we have. And that was huge for me, was empowering myself to heal from the inside, not from the outside. Choosing to heal, choosing to be happy, choosing to surround myself with positive energy instead of letting those dark, negative thoughts dictate my reality. Because I truly believe that all of us live together in harmony and unity, but we all exist in different realities. My view of the world, of life, of this universe could be far different from the person right next to me. And so to me, that defines a sort of separation in our realities. And I thought people that are happy surrounded by me, people like Elizabeth and my family, they all had relatively happy lives. And I thought, what's the difference between them and me? Is it this pain? Is it this suffering? Yeah. But I also saw it as, Elizabeth, she dealt with a lot of stressful and dark things too, but she always seemed to come out on top. She always seemed to have this beautiful, positive way of dealing with things. And so I thought maybe I can do that too. And that's how I started to live my life. I began seeing my pain as not necessarily a curse, but maybe a gift, something that was there to strengthen me, to push me to transform or evolve, to be able to carry weight someday in the future that other people might not be able to. And from there, I started being grateful for all those terrible, horrible, dark experiences that I faced in my life. I started thanking the universe for giving me this chance, this opportunity to rise above. I could have maybe ended my journey at some point and sort of gave up. But I thought if I give up, there's no guarantee that there's anything better after this. There really isn't. That brings me to kind of like this topic of faith. I did grow up Catholic and I was raised in the Catholic Church. Since then, I've sort of gone off on my own, and rather than being a religious person, I just want to be as spiritual as I can, believe that there is a higher power, there is something beyond us, but I didn't want it to be defined by any sort of religion. And that's not to say anything negative or against religion or anybody that is practicing a certain faith. I think any opportunity we have to be spiritual is a good thing. No matter what religion, no matter what you believe in, to be spiritual, to be connected to something higher, something more divine is a really good thing. And for the first time in my life, I've started to connect to something And I decided to sort of feel that out and go down the rabbit hole, if you will. I do want to mention COVID happened. The pandemic happened at some point during all of my, medical problems. So that really did throw a wrench into my healing and my momentum, because, if you were somebody that never went to a hospital or a doctor's office during COVID, great. But if you were like I was there almost every day in a hospital or in a doctor's office or you name it. It was crazy having to deal with that on top of the pandemic. And yeah, it just drove the darkness inside me. It challenged it even further. Sadly, I lost 3 amazing people in my life during COVID. I lost my grandpa to the virus, as well as my cousin and my great aunt. And these were people that truly did fill my life with so much joy. So to have them leave my life in that way was heartbreaking, to say the least. And I don't know. I think seeing the pain that it brought to not just me, but also to my family members, pushed me to not add to that anymore. So I chose to continue fighting, chose to keep living and push, not just for myself, but for the people that truly did care about me. So yeah, I dealt with some heavy loss during all of that. And thankfully, because I was becoming more spiritual and connected to a more divine state of mind, and I also started to connect to those that I've lost in a deeper way. I didn't see it as I lost them in my life. I just saw it as, well, they're no longer going to be in my life in the same way, but that's okay. As long as I think about them and keep them in my heart and listen for them, or become more aware of their signs that they might be around me, I started to become so much more connected to them. And I think we all can do the same. Just because someone passes away doesn't mean you lose them forever. You might just lose the ability to connect to them in the same way that you did before. But if you challenge yourself to connect, whether that be to visit, their gravesite, or to think about them, or to look at photos and videos of them, to play songs that they used to love, whatever it may be, you can find another deep connection to them that way as well. So anyway, that brings us to the last 2 years of my life. I began doing infusions and injections at USC. I was going for ketamine infusions to help, hopefully, with my chronic daily pain. I was going like 3 times a week, every single week. And the infusions were hours long, like 3 or 4 hours long. And I was doing that 3 times a week for months. And while I did get some profound experiences from that, it ultimately did not help my pain. So then we continued on trying to diagnose and figure out what else it could possibly be. And it wasn't until one of my friends mentioned that he had a friend who had similar symptoms to me and went through this treatment to cure his issues. He brought it up to me, and I went down that hole of, all right, maybe this could be something. Let's look into it. So I met with an ENT out in Huntington Beach who essentially discovered right away that I had a huge problem that we had not noticed or addressed before. I had chronic, severe sinusitis. and it was spreading in my head throughout all my sinus cavities. And we don't know how long it was there, but we could guess that it was probably there for quite a while, because the reason we think it was trapped in there was because when I broke my nose, it might have, changed the structure of the nose in some way to not allow the infection to resolve itself. On top of that, I learned that my immunity was incredibly deficient. I had some low immune numbers come back from blood tests, and that also could have been the reason that the sinusitis was not able to rid itself from my body. My body was just not capable of fighting it. We still don't know why my immunity was so low. That is something we're still in the process of trying to figure out, but it was definitely adding to my problem in a severe way. The last couple weeks have honestly been the best that I've felt in my entire life, at least since I was 14. In college, I was averaging a daily pain of about 7, and when I'd go to the ER, it hit 8 or 9. I always tried to reserve 10 for, that like near-death experience where it was like, I truly can't take anything more. Yeah, but now, the last couple weeks, I've been averaging about a 3 on a daily basis. And yeah, I still get headaches or migraines from time to time. Right now, my neck is killing me, actually, but I can deal with it. I feel like I've built up such a tolerance to pain that it truly is, it's no longer disabling me from enjoying or just living my life. On top of all the spiritual stuff, I did start practicing meditation. I started practicing meditation back in college. The first time somebody brought it up to me, I truly laughed, because I just did not think someone like me, who I do have ADD, could be capable of achieving that state of mind or relaxation or calmness. But it took years to practice meditation every single day to get to a point where I do it every single day religiously. And like, it really is a big part of my healing journey. And I've also started practicing manifestation, which I've talked a lot about in our podcast episodes, and just really trying to be the best version of myself every single day, and not necessarily look back on my older versions of myself and be disappointed or put myself down, but rather be grateful, because all those versions of me are the reason I got to this point. And I still have so much room to grow. And it just excites me to be at this point now where pain is no longer controlling my life the way that it did. My spirit, my soul is in charge once again. And I'm not going to be naive and say that'll never happen again. I might hit some really dark lows, in the future, but I am confident for the first time in my life that things are just working out the way they're exactly meant to be. And I've never been happier. I hope all of this has given you guys a clearer idea, maybe some more context of this channel, of this podcast, where I'm at. I do want to mention this empty chair next to me. I do plan and hope to have guests and future speakers on the podcast to just add another layer of experience, another perspective on things whenever we talk about these really cool topics. I do want to mention, though, that Elizabeth will no longer be as involved in the podcast as she was at the beginning, even though our podcast is still so new. Like, we've only been doing it for a couple months now, but we've actually decided to go our separate ways. We've been dating for nearly 8 years now, and we just both hit a point, I think, where we wanted to try growing individually. And we still love and care about each other so much and want to support each other throughout all our different endeavors and passions and projects. Speaking of, she has an amazing clothing company, Fritzette. This episode is not sponsored by them, but it definitely should be because they're incredible. And what she's doing with Fritzette is just so cool. So definitely go check them out. I'll try to link them in the description below. But yeah, we've decided to go our separate ways, and we still want to be in each other's lives in a healthy and positive way. But yeah, I'm just so grateful for all these years that I got to share with her and experience her love and be able to give her my love. And she just really was my best friend through it all, holding my hand whenever I needed it. So thank you, Elizabeth, for just helping me get here and just being you, honestly. So yeah, guys, go check her stuff out as well. Yeah, hopefully she could be on in the future and we could talk about stuff if that's something you guys are interested in. But yeah, guys, this has been our first deep dive episode. Round of applause, honestly. Like I've been wanting to do this for so long, and it took a little bit more healing for me to get to this point, a little bit more setup, obviously. I hope you guys like the setup I've got. Things will probably move and change a little bit as I continue to, figure this out and get into the rhythm of things. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you liked this. I'm not sure how long this is going to be at the end after editing and whatnot, but hopefully it's digestible. Hopefully you guys got something out of it. And moving forward, we have a lot of cool topics planned for these deep dives. I've got one already planned about astral projection. I've got one planned for consciousness, lucid dreaming. I do want to talk about like manifestation. I want to talk about what it means to be a man or a woman and get some other people on that can give us some better insight, things that I might not be too knowledgeable on. I want to learn and grow. So if you guys do have any ideas for future episodes, leave a comment below, shoot us a DM, let us know what you got in mind. And if you're interested in being a speaker, let me know too. I'm totally open to meeting new people or having familiar friends on. So thank you guys again. If you liked this, leave a like right now, subscribe. It's a small click for you guys, but it means so much for us. So if you are able to do it, just click below right now, do it. And yeah, keep following along for this journey, guys. And remember, spirit over mind. Bye.